This is a video on canning potatoes. I didn't want to do it. I told them basically to do a YouTube search and it'd be a lot easier than me producing a video. But they said since I produce other videos and I can, why not just go ahead and do one? So might as well do one. What the heck? Just another one. First thing you need to do is get yourself a Blue Book Guide to Preserving. You can get that at Walmart, Amazon.com, eBay. There's numerous sites that you can get this from. Before you even think about getting into canning, you need to get this book. This will give you guidelines. It will give you recipes, safety precautions. It will tell you basically everything you need to know about canning and what's involved in getting in the canning process itself. If you do decide you want to get involved in canning and you want to do it, you need to get yourself a ball starter kit. That's what this is, or a utensil set. They call it a discovery kit. This can be obtained from numerous places, including online as well as Walmart. There's other stores that carry this as well. Now, if you get the discovery kit or utensil kit, you'll get a jar lifter within the kit itself. You'll also get a magnetic lid lifter. All these tools you're going to need, trust me. A jar funnel. I prefer the stainless steel ones, which you can obtain online or eBay, but this will work just fine starting out. And also a bubble remover or headspace tool. This also comes in handy. And if you don't know what these are used for, you need to go back to your blue book and you need to skim over your blue book and it will cover all of these. Now in this video you're going to see me using a candy thermometer. That is optional. You're also going to see me using a ladle, which will come in handy. A lot of people do canning will use these as well. And you'll also see me using a plastic spoon. Again, this is all a matter of personal preference. You'll discover down the road that you may want to take this route and get these optional things. And I like to be on the safety side. That's why I have the candy thermometer, so I know my temperatures are where they need to be. As far as the ladle, if I need extra hot water to add to my jars or to add to my pressure canner, that's where the ladle comes in. Also, the ladle comes in handy for basically adding water to your jars as opposed to just using a separate pot of boiling water and trying to pour it in there. Now another optional tool is this Sure Tight band tool. This prevents under tightening as well as over tightening. It's got like a ratchet design that will basically make sure you don't over tighten your lids. It's stupid proof, so somebody like myself can even use it. And if you have somebody that's got gorilla hands and over tightens jars, this will prevent that. And if you've got somebody that doesn't have much strength and can't tighten jars that well, this device will alleviate that problem. If you over tighten your jars, you'll have jar breakage and basically you'll ruin all your food, and you don't want to do that. Again, this device is optional. It is a lifesaver. It can actually be found, believe it or not, at a lot of Lowe's stores, and it can be found online. Don't know about Walmart. I'm not sure about that yet. This is going to be your big ticket item. This is a 23 quart. I went with this because I can double stack pint jars inside. You don't have to get a big one. If you want to go on small scale, you can. But if you run across people that say, well, I got 2-3 bushels of potatoes, do you want any? And you're stupid enough to say yes, guess what you're going to be doing for a long time? This will actually come in handy, believe it or not. Again, you don't have to buy a 23 quart. This is really on the high side if you want to do a lot of canning, and you don't have to just pressure can in this. You can use it as a regular canner as well. Now if you remember, I was talking about the double stacking, and this is where this comes in handy. Now normally I put a separator between these two jars that you see on the picture here. This is just to demonstrate. You want to put a separator between the two tiers of pint jars. You want to make sure you do that. You don't want them sitting on one on top of the other. And you can buy these separators online. I don't believe you can buy them at Walmart. I have not seen them. You just got to make sure you get the right size separator for your particular canner. Now this is also what I use in the video, and this is a fresh preserving kit. If you look at your blue book, you will see this in your blue book. They come in different sizes, just like your pressure canners. So you're going to need to decide what size you want. It's better to buy too big than too small. But if you buy too big and you're limited on countertop space as far as your stove is concerned, you might want to take that into consideration because it may overlap your burners. Again, if you don't know what size to get, look in your blue book and you want to look at the quart capacity or the pint capacity of this. Now we're going to talk about jars. These are canning jars from Walmart. These are made in China. They are El Cheapo. Keep in mind, you get what you pay for. I have learned this the hard way, as you will see very shortly. For 30 cents more a case, you can get product made in the United States that will not break and will hold up and won't have imperfections in the glass and possibly break. If you have a jar that breaks with scalding hot water, goes all over the floor, God only knows what could happen. Keep this in mind when you're selecting your jars. Also, you want to make sure you're very careful if somebody offers you used jars or mayonnaise jars. Mayonnaise jars you want to try to avoid at all costs. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to get on me for this, but it's better to be safe than sorry. If you look at your blue book, it will tell you not to use mayonnaise jars. When your family or yourself is at stake, do you really want to gamble and take chances? This isn't the 1920s and the 1930s anymore. You have to get with the times. And granted, a lot of things the USDA and other agencies put out are there to scare us, but they're also there to protect us, believe it or not. Now, this is what happens when you use China glass. I prepped these properly, and as I was removing them, they were done processing, and the lids weren't too tight and they weren't too loose. I was removing them, this decided on the way to the countertop, 3 feet away, to the bottom, basically the bottom let go. And luckily, I had shoes on. Had I not had shoes on, I don't even want to think about what would have happened. And I also have dogs, little yip yapping min pins, and they're always under my feet constantly. Luckily, this let go over the stove. Granted, I got burnt, but I was not happy. Lesson learned. I will not go through this again, and hopefully you learn from this as well. Now, it's very important that you check all your jars as you take them out of the case and you inspect them. As you can see by the red arrow here, we have a defect in the jar. This is a brand new jar directly out of the case, and yes, it is a ball jar. It's very important that you check these things because if you don't, down the road, they're going to create more problems for you. Now, like I said before, even if they're Golden Harvest, they happen to be ball canning jars, they happen to be a major brand made in the US, you need to inspect all your jars regardless before you wash them, before you use them. I mean, go over them really good, especially if they're packaged like this. If you get a box like this that somebody gives you or they happen to be at a yard sale, inspect them before you purchase them. If they're given to you, you can't complain too much. Now, as far as jars concerned, basically these two are made by the same company, and you also have Golden Harvest, in which you can get. You can obtain them at Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Dollar Store, Kmart, Walmart. There's so many places that carry these. Do your price checking and do your shopping around first. I have found that basically Dollar Store and Walmart are basically pretty much close to the same price. Now, if you do go with used jars, you have to worry about your rims, the very, very top of them. You want to check them for any nicks or any scratches, any glass missing, or anything like that. If that is the case, you're not going to get a good seal, or it's going to be a mediocre seal. So basically, you're better off just throwing it out. It's not worth your safety. If you look on the side of any canning jar box, you will notice that it tells you you need to wash your jars. And it doesn't matter if they're old, if they're used, it doesn't matter if they've been with you forever. You need to make sure that these lids on the very top are clean. And if you notice in a previous video, I had made this very clear and stressed that this needs to be done. It needs to be checked on the very top. If you don't do this and you clean the rim like you just saw me doing and you cut yourself, I guarantee you will check the jars next time. I've had it happen once to me and I don't want to have it happen again. Now, Best tool for cleaning inside. A lot of people use special adapters and brushes to get in there, and by far I find this is the easiest way. It's like a Scotch Brite pad mounted on a sponge or adhered to a sponge, and I basically use a wooden spoon to actually get in there and clean it really well. If you notice, I'm trying to get to the bottom, and that's the only way that I can find to get to the bottom. I've got big hands, and I have yet to find a jar cleaner that will, or abrasive device that will actually get in there and clean every last bit of dirt out. This by far I find to be the best method. Now, once you're sure your jars are completely cleaned, you want to make sure you rinse them off really well. And what I usually do is I make sure that I shake it up like you see that I'm doing here, and I want to make sure that I get all of the soap suds out as much as possible. And then, of course, you're going to put them in your canner. Now, you can scrub all you want, and this isn't going to come off with a regular sponge or an abrasive pad. And this needs to come off. Basically, this is old food residue. This happens to be a used jar. And the best way that I found to remove this is to basically get yourself some SOS pads or some soap pads like this. These soap pads work real well. All they are steel wool, and they have soap impregnated inside of them, and it's actually really, really effective in order to remove stubborn stains. Now, once your jars are clean, you want to put them in your canner, and you want to make sure the rack is in the bottom of the canner. That's very important. You want to make sure you use a rack. You don't want them sitting directly on the bottom of the pan. Okay, now you want to make sure that you put your water in your canner like you see. I'm filling the jars up first. Now, the reason why you fill your jars up first, if you don't and you just add water, your jars are going to be buoyant. That's common sense. Sorry if the video is a little jerky, but that's because I have sped the video up so you don't have to watch this long and boring process. Basically, you just fill your jars up first with water, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to basically fill the rest of it up, and you want to make sure that you go at least an inch or two above your jars. I happen to go 2 inches above my jars because I have a big canner, and if I need the spare extra hot boiling water, I have it to actually use in my potatoes, and that's actually where I get my hot water from. A lot of people actually have a separate pan for that, and I use the hot water from this because it's already boiling. Now, after you put your water in your canner, you want to put your canner on the stove. Now, this process of heating your jars up, if you're using a large canner or a small canner, it doesn't matter. This is what's going to take the longest to heat this up. So this is what you want to do first while you're prepping the rest of your stuff. This will take a while to get up to temperature. And what you want to do is you want to get this, you want to put your burner on high, and you want to try to get the temperature up to 180 degrees, just like the blue book says. Now, while the canner is heating up the jars, if you happen to look at your lids, it says you need to wash the lids in hot soapy water. So you need to make sure you wash them. I'm not going to show you a video on that. You should know how to do it. The other thing you need to do is wash your lids as well. Now, you can use the abrasive part if you've got any residue on the inside. Now, the good thing about that SOS pad or the steel wool pads that I was talking about, they come in really handy on getting on the inside of these lids as well. So you want to make sure you wash your lids, I mean not your lids, your rings real well. Now I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to do. As soon as I've washed all my lids, I go ahead and I put them on inside the rings like you see here. And you can either have water in the pan or not in the pan. Of course, as you can see, I'm screwing this one up. It normally doesn't screw up like this. I'm going to put it back in the water like you see here. Now, the reason why I'm doing it like this, you're going to see very shortly. It makes it a lot easier when it comes to removal time, especially when the water's boiling and you don't have to touch them. It makes all the difference in the world. And I'm going to put a jar here to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, when you go to remove them, suppose this water is boiling hot. As you can see, you're removing both of them at the same time. So you're minimizing the contact with both of them. And when you put it on, back it off counterclockwise and then tighten it. And as you can see, it goes on real easy. There's nothing to it. It's real simple, and I'm actually going to do it again so you see what I'm talking about. And it is very easy to do. Both come out at the same time. And by the time you grab that, it shouldn't be too hot. And you're going to turn it counterclockwise. In other words, you're loosening it in order to get that groove, and then you're going to tighten it. It's that simple. There's nothing to it. Now, after you've put your lids and their tops in your pan, you do not want to have this at a rolling boil. You want to put it on your back burner, of course, and you want to have it just on simmer. You need to get that temperature up to 180 degrees, just like the blue book says. Like I stated before, you want to make sure that you turn your lids on last, because that big pot that's heating up your jars takes forever to heat up. So basically, you wait until the big pot gets close to 180 degrees, and then you go ahead and you turn on your burner in the back for your lids and your tops. Now, if you remember in the beginning of the video, I said the optional thing was a candy thermometer. I happen to be safe about things, and the blue book says 180 degrees. And as you can see, this one is at about 190 degrees. So I know I'm safe on my jar temperature, and I'm good to go on that. Now, once you know your jars are heated up and you saw them at 190 degrees, then you go ahead and you want to check your lids and your tops. As you can see here, I'm at about 190, 195. A little too much, so I had to back off the heat, and then it was fine. Now, if you've looked at my other videos, you would know that basically I prepare my potatoes ahead of time because I do them in bulk. We're talking 1 to 2 bushels. What I mean by that is 120 to 130 pounds or more at a time. So I happen to have an extra one of these big containers. So what I do is I put my prepared potatoes in there, and the next day I'll end up actually taking out of these when I'm doing my canning. Now you're probably saying, well, it's an awful big space. The thing is, you always miss a potato peel or something, or a black spot, or something gets in there. And if you notice, I've also got that white spoon there. Now, the reason why I have that white spoon there is so I can easily take the potatoes out of the container, and basically if there's any starch or anything that shouldn't be in there, any small pieces, any peelings or anything like that, they'll actually come out, and you'll see that in the next step. Now I'm going to fill my jars. As you notice, I destroyed a moth. That's what that big blotch is in the background. When I'm canning, basically you want to do it like clockwork. You don't want to skip any steps in between. I basically get a paper towel and squished it. I know, sounds disgusting, but I didn't want to play. I just want to get this stuff done and over with. As long as it doesn't get near my canning stuff or get in my food, I have nothing to worry about. As you can see, I am loading my jar, and you can see how I'm actually filtering the water out, any small debris or anything that might be in there, and it's actually coming out rather easily. And you want to get it close to the top, and you want to leave about an inch of headspace, and you see me shaking it. That allows the potatoes to settle. Here I am using quart jars, so I am using lemon juice. Again, go back to your ball blue book if you need to know how much lemon juice you need to add. That's the thing about YouTube videos. If you question anything about YouTube videos, go back to the blue book. This is what that optional piece was that I had, the ladle. As you can see, I'm taking out of the same water, but I'm not contacting any food directly, and I'm not touching the ladle, or the funnel rather. And basically, it's pretty sanitary, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Then I'm going to take my lid off. And yes, I forgot to remove the air from this jar, but I did wipe my top off. That's a good thing. I know, I skipped a step. This jar was actually reprocessed, even though you can't see it in the video. I realized it afterwards, and then I ended up pulling it out. It's rather simple, using the method that I showed you with the lids, and you turn it counterclockwise and then tighten it, and then you go ahead and you put it in your canner. Just like so, it's that simple. Now I'm going to show you a close-up of me filling the jar. If you're a little slow like me, you need step-by-step instructions on certain things. So I'm going to fill a jar, and I'm taking the jar out of the canner, dump the water out, as you can see, and I'm putting my funnel in, and I'm going to put my potatoes in. Keep in mind these potatoes have been in the refrigerator for a day to let the starch and all the debris and everything settle to the bottom of the pan itself. And the other reason why I'm using this big pan is because it's got such a large surface area. If there's any debris that happens to be floating in there that you missed, or for instance, potato peels, they're going to show up. Now, as you can see, I've got this filled, and I'm shaking the jar to get it to settle. And I'm not going to put more potatoes in. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my lemon juice. It's real simple. And then after you add your lemon juice, I know we've already covered this. I'm going to go over it again so you can see it up close and personal, so to speak. And I know you can't see me ladling the water in, but I'm using the water from the pan on the right that's heating up my jars, and I'm filling up my jars. And this one I'm actually going to do properly. I'm actually going to remove the air bubbles. That's very important. I don't know if you're going to see them on this close up, and hopefully you do. You remove your funnel, and then you use your handy dandy tool here. You can see some air bubbles coming up. It's hard with the glare. You want to make sure you're going around the edges and in the center as much as possible, and you want to remove all that space. Now the potatoes are probably going to settle down to the bottom, and the liquid level should be okay. Now you want to make sure you wipe off your jars. I use a paper towel and I put it in the boiling water, and then I go ahead and wipe off my rim. Remember this method, this little shortcut? Then I put my lid on real quick. I back it off a little bit and then tighten it, and then I go ahead and I put it in the canner. It's as simple as that. Now, as you can see here, my water's boiling inside the canner, and I have my big pot of potatoes, of course, with my big spoon as well. And then you're going to process the next jar. Now you've got all your jars in your canner and you're ready to go. You're going to need to basically turn your stove on high, or your burner on high. Depends if you've got electric or you've got gas. You want to turn it on as high as it can go, because basically you want to heat this up and prep it and get it ready to go. Now we need to put our lid on our canner. Keep in mind this is very hot, so you might get burnt if you're not careful. You want to make sure you remove your jiggler, which I forgot to do, highlighted by the red arrow. Once your jiggler is off, that allows your steam to escape. Now, you do have a safety mechanism, which I'm zooming in on now. It's going to spit and sputter, and a little bit of steam is going to come out. Don't concern yourself with it. It's a safety device, and it will pop up on its own. It may not until you put the jiggler on. It all depends on the situation. Now, highlighted by the blue arrow, this is where the steam is going to escape. Now, you want a steady stream of steam to escape from this for about 10 minutes. To do that, you're going to need to run it for 10 minutes. And here, as you can see, I'm setting the timer. Now, the timer needs to be set for about 10 minutes. I put it for 11. It doesn't really matter if you go a little bit extra. Now, once that you've done that, you're going to see that this is bubbling like I told you before. And you're going to see the steam coming out, and it eventually will come up. Now, I kind of cheated. I didn't like the water dripping all over the place. It's not that much water. And I used a paper towel to basically absorb the water. And all I did was barely touch it, and basically what ended up happening was it went up on its own. Now, don't be concerned about wiping the top off unless you don't want water dripping on your stove or dripping on the floor. I have several miniature pinchers, and they are constantly under the foot, and that's why I wipe this off and they happen to pop up. Now, next thing you want to do is put your tattler or your jiggler on. Everybody has a different name for it, and you want to put it on until the temperature gauge reads 15 pounds per square inch, as you can see here. Now, this is my own personal method, and it does not go against what the blue book states. This is a method that works great for me, and the reason why I'm saying this, a lot of people wait until you get to the desired specified pressure, and then you back off your heat, and then you're raising it, then you're lowering it, then you're raising it again. It gets a little old after a while, and this is my method, and you're going to see why I prefer this method over others. Now you want to go ahead once you've reached your 15 pounds per square inch. Again, this is my method. It works for me. I suggest you try it, and you won't be disappointed. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. You veteran canners, if you are watching this, you're going to go, well, that don't work for me. This is for the beginners. I learned the hard way. Now, As you can see, I'm on 11 pounds per square inch. I am at 1100 feet above sea level, and this is exactly where it needs to be for 1 quart of potatoes. So as you can see, this is set properly. All I did after I hit the 15 pounds was I turned it down to 5. Believe me, I've done tons of potatoes, and I have learned where to put it on the stove, and it stays the same every time. And this is exactly where it needs to be. Now, a lot of people, once they have reached either their 15 pounds of pressure or the pressure that it's supposed to be at, you want to start your timer. It's important that you start your timer. For quarts, it's going to be 40 minutes, and it's going to be 35 for pints. Now, once your processing time has been completed, you want to go ahead and you want to shut your stove off, and you want to let your pressure gauge drop all the way to 0. Now, once your temperature has reached 0, you're going to have to wait for the safety device to drop, and then you're going to have to let it set for 10 minutes like this. Real simple. Now you need to set your timer again for 10 minutes. Now keep in mind, you don't want to remove the lid until you set your timer for 10 minutes. Then you're going to go ahead and remove it. This is going by what the blue book states to do. I know a lot of people don't do this. I follow the directions. Now after the 10 minutes is up, you can go ahead and either remove the jiggler or remove the lid together. It doesn't matter. The safety device has been dropped. Open it away from you like so. It's that simple. Now, just like before, you need to set your timer for 10 minutes before removing your jars from the canner. Again, this is going by what the blue book states, and I have never had a problem by following what the blue book says. Now for your entertainment, if you hear a popping sound like this highlighted by the red arrow, you'll actually hear the jars popping. This is absolutely normal. Again, by the red arrow. This is perfectly normal, so don't concern yourself with the popping. That's what's supposed to happen. You should be able to hear the jars, and they will pop. Don't concern yourself with the popping. They're supposed to do that. That's a good thing. That's what you want. That shows you have a good seal. Now you want to go ahead and remove your jars from the canner. Now you want to place them on a towel, and you want to basically put them on a table if at all possible, or a flat surface, and you want to let them sit from 12 to 24 hours. Yes, I know it seems like a long time. And if you notice, if I zoom in here, you will see that they're still cooking while they're on the table. Now, if you didn't hear any popping sounds, don't concern yourself with it. They will seal while they are cooling as well. You want to make sure your jars are evenly spaced and they have plenty of air circulation in between them. Do not put a fan on them. Do not tighten the lids. Don't touch the lids. Let them alone for 12 to 24 hours. And then you can go ahead and remove your rings, wash the tops off, and go ahead and mark them with black markers. If you look at my other videos, I go over stuff like that. Now, if you do a lot of potatoes like I do, this batch I happen to do 2 bushels of potatoes. We're talking 130, 140 pounds. Canning takes a lot out of you. You're going to basically be burnt out. It is a really, really challenging thing to do, especially if you're doing large quantities. You'll be ready for a nap. Be prepared. I look forward to any comments, any suggestions. I appreciate you sitting through this long, long video. Believe me, I did not want to do it, but I was encouraged to do it, so I went ahead and did it. I could have done more canning had I not produced this video. And like I said, I welcome any comments, any suggestions, and hopefully this has been helpful to someone. Thank you for watching.